Now we're going to go into multiplying complex numbers. Okay. Now you have to remember, complex numbers are not real numbers, so all the little rules that we normally would use for real numbers, we can't use with complex numbers. Okay, so let's say, write that down. Complex numbers are not real numbers. So some rules for real numbers do not apply. Okay. So, for example, for real numbers, you can have square root of 4 times square root of 9. You can just bring them together. So that's square root of 4 times 9, which equals square root of 36, which is 6. Okay. But if you actually try that for complex numbers, okay, so what if you had square root of negative 4 times square root of negative 9? Okay. If you brought them together using real number rules, that would be square root of negative 4 times negative 9, which would be square root of 36, which would be 6. And this actually is incorrect. Okay, we would do that if we had just real numbers. Okay, now for complex numbers, okay, kind of draw a line through that for the incorrect. Now for complex numbers, make sure it's up far enough. If we had square root of negative 4 times square root of negative 9, that would actually become square root of 4 times I times square root of 9I. Well, square root of 9 times I. So the 9I is just 9 times I. Okay, so we can actually go ahead, well, we can simplify them separately if we wanted to. So square root of 4, we know that's 2. And square root of 9, we know that's 3. So we have times square root of I times square root of I. Not square root of I times I times I. Sorry about that. Okay. So when we're multiplying, that's when you have to remember that when you have 2 times 3, you might as well go ahead and make that 6. 6 times I squared. This is where you have to remember that I squared equals negative 1. Okay, so this ends up being 6 times negative 1, which gives us negative 6. Okay, so that's why you can't use real number rules with complex numbers.
Could you leave your final answer as a 6I squared, or do you want us to go off with your...
Oh yeah, if you left it 6I squared, it would be right, it just wouldn't be completely simplified. All right. It's kind of like leaving a fraction as 4 over 2 instead of making it 2. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Still writing. All right. Okay, so let's say, for example, if we wanted to multiply square root of -2 times square root of 20. Oh, make that -20. Sorry about that. Okay, so square root of -2, we can make that square root of 2i, or square root of 2 times I, times square root of -20, we can make that square root of 20 times I. Okay, so that gives us square root of 20 times square root of 2 times I times I. Yes.
Wouldn't it be -1?
It would be before we pulled out the I.
Oh, okay.
Yep, so that I takes the negative out.
Okay.
So times I times I. Okay, so we know I times I is I squared. And we know that I squared equals -1. Okay, so 20, we'll separate that one up. Make a little side note there. And also, we know that 20 is equal